Russian firefighters battle a massive blaze the size of a football pitch, which broke out overnight in mega Kimki shopping center in Moscow's northern suburb. Russian news agencies quoted sources in emergency services saying arson was suspected as a possible cause of the blaze. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero. And I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
Another big-time fuel price rollback expected next week. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. aims to woo more investors at the ASEAN-EU summit. Marcos administration vows to support Philippine Air Force modernization. Olympic gold medalist Heidelin Diaz bags world champion title at the IWF. And Backstreet Boy Nick Carter accused of raping autistic minor.
Consecutive week, fuel prices will be reduced. According to oil industry players, the price adjustment on diesel per liter will range from 3 pesos to 3 pesos and 30 centavos. Gasoline will be reduced by 1 peso and 40 centavos to 1 peso and 70 centavos. There's also a big chance that kerosene prices will be deducted. The Oil Industry Management Bureau of the Department of Energy said the projected adjustments might change depending on the trading days for pump prices. The price adjustments are driven mainly by lesser demand for fuel due to the COVID-19 restrictions in China and enough inventory of fuel in the world market.
An electricity rate hike is expected after one of the 4 refunds ordered by the Energy Regulatory Board, or ERC, is completed. Data gathered by Net25 showed that around 33 centavos per kilowatt hour would be adjusted and reflected in electric bills this December. ERC Chairperson Mona Lisa Di Malanta said, based on projections, an increase of 66 pesos would be added to consumers using 200 kilowatt hours every month. Bills would reflect an additional 99 pesos for those consuming 300 kilowatt hours per month, 132 pesos for 400 kilowatt hours, and 165 pesos for 500 kilowatt hours. Recently, the ERC ordered the Manila Electric Company, or Meralco, to implement 4 distribution rate true-up funds or refunds, where the last would be on May 2023.
The Marcos administration's economic managers have called on Congress to immediately pass the proposed Maharlika Wealth Fund, or MWF. Moira Encina for the details.
Amid criticisms, the administration's economic team has defended and supported the proposed creation of the Maharlika Wealth Fund, or MWF. In a statement read by Finance Secretary Benjamin Jokno, the economic managers of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. appealed to both chambers of Congress to pass the proposed legislation for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund and the Maharlika Investment Corporation.
The establishment of a sovereign wealth fund is a tried and tested investment vehicle that has been used by governments in both the first world and developing countries to achieve their economic objectives.
Jokno argued that the MWF would help the government achieve economic growth. He added that there is no perfect timing for investing.
Dapat tayo nag-i-invest talaga. Kasi kung hindi ka nag-i-invest, wala tayong pupuntahan.
Jokno added that the creation of a sovereign wealth fund is long overdue.
I think we should have done this during the much earlier when we had inflows from Malampaya. So had we done this much earlier, so we set aside X% of what we are depleting to take care of the needs of future generation of Filipinos. We're all transient in this world, right? Let's think of the future generation. That's most of the objectives of sovereign funds, thinking of future generations.
The finance chief emphasized that the proposal has provided many safeguards to ensure that the money would be utilized wisely with transparency and accountability. Jokno added that based on the proposal, the funding would be managed and supervised by professionals.
We have confidence that with professionals managing the funds, there will be efficient use and management of these investable public funds.
The finance official said the proposal should not be compared to the One Malaysia Development Berhad that had a single signatory and no safeguards. The MWF rather will have checks and balances. Jokno further clarified that the Philippines has money or sources of funding for the MWF and that the country's current debt is low. Moira Encina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The president will no longer be the chairman of the board in the proposed Maharlika Welfare Fund. Proponents also assured that safeguards are provided to allay fears that the Sovereign Wealth Fund will follow Malaysia's One Malaysia Development Berhad. Paulo Ramos reports.
Proponents of the controversial Maharlika Welfare Fund, or MWF, have decided to remove the president as the chairman of the board of directors that will manage the Sovereign Wealth Fund. House Banks and Financial Intermediaries Committee Chairperson, Congressman Irwin Tieng, disclosed this at a hearing for the proposed legislation. Senior Deputy Minority Leader Paul Daza raised that the investment fund will be politicized if the president would chair its board of directors. Tieng said, proponents agreed that instead of the president, the Secretary of Finance should be the head of the board of directors. Tieng added that regarding the composition of the 15-man board, there would also be 4 independent directors instead of the original proposed 2. Daza, on the other hand, also reiterated to his colleagues that the president should also not appoint members of the board. The bill's proponents assured that there are safeguards provided in the proposed Sovereign Wealth Fund. These measures include tasking the board of directors to engage an internal and an external auditor. The books and accounts of the fund are within the ambit of the powers of the Commission on Audit. The creation of a joint congressional oversight committee to monitor the implementation. Report to the president on the investment performance. Members of the board should be experts of corporate governance or investments. Setting of a risk management unit to ensure that the corporation is achieving a prudent balance between risks and rewards. Setting a cap on administrative and operating expenses at 2% of its initial capitalization. Paulo Ramos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will have at least 10 bilateral meetings at the ASEAN-EU Summit in Brussels, Belgium next week. Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Daniela Espiritu told reporters that President Marcos Jr. is expected to address various forums at the summit. Espiritu said the president is among those who will give opening and closing remarks, as well as an omnibus intervention. He will also join 4 other heads of state in a press conference for the summit. The Foreign Affairs official said some of the activities the president will attend in Brussels include a gala dinner, the roundtable, business meetings, sideline dialogues with other leaders, and a courtesy visit to the King of Belgium. The president is also expected to bring home 10 agreements worth almost 7 million pesos of investments, creating about 800 jobs for Filipinos. Marcos Jr. is set to discuss in various forums the economic recovery, post-pandemic recovery, energy, food, maritime, defense security, and digitalization, among others. As always, the president will also meet with the Filipino community in Belgium, almost 6,000 workers, most of whom are professionals.
The president will have the opportunity to expound on our trade and investment policies to attract more, of course, trade and investments from Europe. Then, kasama din dito yung networking among Filipino businessmen and European businessmen. Hopefully, for this networking, the Filipino businessmen will be able to come up with deals with their European counterparts. Now, to provide more detail on the one-on-one meetings of the President with key European corporations. Suffice it to say that he will be meeting with Unilever. And this is important because this corporation is intending to establish a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility for personal care products in Cavite. So expansion of investments ito, no? To the tune of 4.7 billion pesos. Now, it's expected to generate at least 130 projected employment for the Philippines. Now, the 130 new jobs. He's also expected to have a one-on-one meeting with OSEA, the shipbuilding and navigation and logistics company, who are intending to develop a shipyard with an investment of 1.5 billion pesos, and which will create 500 to 600 direct and indirect jobs. No?
The country's business sector has expressed confidence that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. can woo more investors in his upcoming visit to Brussels, Belgium. Eden Santos with the report.
The business sector is confident that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s trip abroad would be a big boost for the Philippine economy. According to Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., President of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, the President's visit enables him to convince foreign investors to do business in the country. In his recent state visits to Indonesia, Singapore, and his working visit to the United States, President Marcos not only signed agreements for the government, but also brought home investment pledges.
It is up to us as leaders of our nations to move and shape that transformation. The future beckons, and we can embark upon that journey as single nations.
Mabuhay ang Pilipino!
The President is set to fly to Belgium next week to attend the ASEAN-EU Summit. He is expected to participate in the roundtable and business meetings with various European companies who plan to invest in the Philippines. ECOP said that although not all investment pledges pushed through, there are pledges that were fulfilled which provide job opportunities for Filipinos. Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
According to Pagasa, a low-pressure area or LPA has entered the Philippine area of responsibility. Pagasa says the LPA may escalate into a tropical depression over the next 24 to 48 hours. At 10 a.m. today, the weather disturbance was estimated at 415 kilometers east-northeast of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur. Pagasa says the shear line and trough of the LPA are bringing cloudy skies with scattered rain showers in Visayas, Mindanao, and southern Tagalog. Thunderstorms are also expected to happen. An official of the weather agency says that once the LPA turns into a tropical depression, it will be named Rosal, the 18th storm this year and the first one in December.
The Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, has reminded the public to prepare for the effects of the low-pressure area that was seen east of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur. Assistant Secretary Bernardo Rapedito Alejandro IV, OCD Deputy Administrator for Operations, said the agency already issued a memorandum to all chairpersons of the Regional Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Councils, or RDRRMCs, and OCD Regional Directors to prepare for the LPA and the shear line in northern Luzon. OCD also alerted heads of the disaster units in the country's 17 regions to monitor advisories from the DOST Pagasa, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Mines and Geosciences Bureau, and other surveillance agencies. They are advised to have a pre-disaster risk assessment, strengthen their communications, and to prepare issuances of warning warnings and advisories to their communities. Meanwhile, a rainfall warning was issued on Davao Oriental, Davao de Oro, Bukidnon, Surigao del Sur, Agusan del Sur, Davao del Norte, North Cotabato, Maguindanao del Norte, Eastern Samar, and Bohol due to the LPA's trough. OCD has advised residents to be careful of heavy rainfalls, flooding, and possible landslides. Welcomes 2 new ATAC helicopters from Turkey and vows support to the PAF modernization. Japan distributes Sokova, the first domestic COVID drug. And China's Xi Jinping visits Saudi Arabia to assert power amid U.S. influence. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after the short break.
Brings you the biggest event of the year.
Ready na ba kayong makisaya sa amin?
Mga kababayan, are you ready? Ready!
Net 25 goes to Dubai with fun and games from Pia Guanyo Mago, Tony Petcaba, Ariel Roses, Wedge Kujama, and Depkada Squad. More laughter from Quezon City, Eric, Epi, Vando, and Jenny. With special performances from Diana Menezes, Emma Tiglao, and Empoy Marquez. With the special participation of Tito, Vic, and Joey. One event you surely don't want to miss. Let's net together, kabayan, in Dubai. December 10, 2022, 9 p.m. on Net 25.
Sa Net 25.
Net 25.
Continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Still here in the Philippines, the Department of Health may recommend to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to extend the public health emergency declaration if Congress fails to pass a law that would address the country's pandemic response. The state of calamity declaration due to COVID-19 is set to expire on December 31st. Health officer in charge, Maria Rosario Vergeira, said this would mean the end of vaccination efforts and price regulations on pandemic response items unless Congress passes the law creating the Philippine Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Vergeira said if the law would not be passed, they would ask President Marcos to extend the public health emergency declaration even for just a month. The chances of the bill getting the approval of Congress are slim since both chambers are set to take a month-long break during the holiday next week. Meanwhile, the Health Department had recommended to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF, changes or relaxation in the COVID-19 alert levels. Verhades said the task force has directed the Department of Interior and local government to study if local government units or LGUs have the capacity to assess their areas and implement restrictions on their own. Verhades said the DOH is willing to assist LGUs on the matter. Under the DOH recommendation, alert levels will now be used as a guideline and restrictions may be lifted.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. led today's commissioning of two new T-129 ATAC helicopters in Malacanang. The new helicopters are the latest equipment acquired from Turkey as part of the modernization program of the Philippine Air Force. President Marcos said his administration is committed to fully supporting the PAF in fulfilling its vision to become a world-class. The PAF's recent advancement will drive it to enhance its defense capabilities consistently, perform its duties effectively, and protect the nation with vigor and pride. As he congratulated the PAF for acquiring new assets, Marcos expects the new state-of-the-art helicopters will improve the Air Force's operational readiness and responsiveness and empower it to fulfill its mandate to the country. The president also acknowledged the contribution of the Turkey government and the Turkish aerospace industries for being partners of the Philippines in modernizing the country's Air Force. Marcos likewise expressed gratitude to the Air Force and Armed Forces of the Philippines for their contribution to the external defense, internal security operations, and disaster relief and response operations in the country. The two T-129 ATAC helicopters are part of a 269 million peso contract with Turkey signed in 2020. Other new assets in the PAF's inventory include a pair of refurbished Bell AHI or 1S Huey Cobra attack helicopters from Jordan, as well as armed light observation and transport helicopters.
Iran has carried out its first known execution over the protests that have shaken the country since September. 23-year-old Mohsen Shekari was hanged on Thursday. Shekari was convicted of blocking a street and wounding a paramilitary during the early phases of the protest in September. At least a dozen other people are on death row after being sentenced to hang in recent weeks. Mahmoud Amiri Moghadam, a spokesman for Oslo-based Iran Human Rights, urges a strong international reaction to the hanging. Otherwise, there may be daily executions of protesters. Demonstrators have swept across Iran for nearly 3 months since the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. She died after being arrested by the country's morality police for violating the country's dress code.
One person died Friday in a massive blaze the size of a football pitch, which broke out overnight in a sprawling shopping and entertainment center in a northern Moscow suburb. According to Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations, the fire spread in an area of 7,000 square meters. At first, authorities reported arson as the cause of the fire, but then later pointed to safety violations. The latest report says more than 70 firefighters and 20 fire trucks were deployed, their work hampered by the building design. A video posted on social media shows a huge fire with people evacuating from the burning building to a parking lot.
Residents of Lisbon are mopping up after heavy rains flooded the Portuguese capital, resulting in at least one death. Authorities say a 55-year-old woman died after becoming trapped by water in her basement. Rain and strong winds Thursday swept away vehicles and flooded streets, buildings, and public transport stations. Authorities even had to shut down some roads and tunnels. One hospital lost part of its roof to strong winds and was shut down after it flooded. Airline travelers were also affected as 2 flights were diverted from Lisbon's airport.
This was supposed to be the comeback year for the world economy. Instead, 2022 was marked by a new war, record inflation, and climate-linked disasters. It was a polycrisis year, a term popularized by historian Adam Tooze. Get ready for more gloom in 2023. After the COVID-induced economic crisis of 2020, consumer prices began to rise in 2021 as countries emerged from lockdowns and other restrictions. Central bankers insisted that high inflation would only be temporary as economies returned to normal. But Russia's conflict with Ukraine in late February sent energy and food prices soaring. Central banks played catch-up as they started to raise interest rates this year in an effort to tame galloping inflation. This at the risk of tipping countries into deep recessions. In Germany, 1 in 2 people say they now only spend on essential items. The European Central Bank gives a clear signal. It would maintain its tightening policy, saying that Eurozone inflation has yet to peak. Economists expect Germany and Italy, another major Eurozone economy, to fall into recession. Britain's economy is already shrinking. Rating agency SP Global foresees stagnation for the Eurozone in 2023. But for Ruel Bietsma, professor of macroeconomics at the University of Amsterdam, the biggest crisis is climate change, which is happening in slow motion. According to reinsurance giant Swiss Re, or RE, natural and man-made catastrophes have cost $268 billion in economic losses so far in 2022.
Kristalina Georgieva from the International Monetary Fund welcomes China's decisive actions to move away from its strict zero-COVID policy.
We welcome the decisive actions taken by the Chinese authorities. First, to recalibrate the COVID policies so as to create a better impetus for revival of growth in China.
Hardcore COVID lockdowns have been the main source of public anger in China. But now people with non-severe infections can isolate at home. In a press briefing with the heads of other major economic institutions, Georgieva points out that China's performance matters not only to China, but to the world economy. The IMF managing director also praises China's effort to boost vaccination rates and antiviral treatments.
The first domestically developed COVID-19 drug, Sokovia, is being prescribed in Japan following an emergency approval by its health ministry in late November. The oral medication developed by the pharmaceutical company Shionogi Co. has been confirmed to be safe and estimated to be effective for people aged 12 and older. Additionally, Sokovia can be used by low-risk patients to lessen mild cases of COVID-19. Tests show the drug can shorten symptoms by about 24 hours. The pill is taken once a day for 5 days, and patients should start taking it within 3 days of the onset of the COVID-19 symptoms. Meanwhile, Sokovia should not be taken with other drug medications and most especially not by pregnant women. China's President Xi Jinping is in Saudi Arabia for 3 days of significant bilateral meetings with regional leaders and, of course, with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Political analysts say Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia at this time is crucial as it opens another milestone in the China-U.S. competition. Xi's trip is also a follow-up to his comments made at the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum in Beijing in 2018. Xi urged Arab states that they must work hard for financial and high-tech cooperation.
中国还将向巴勒斯坦提供紧急人道主义援助，并向联合国近东巴勒斯坦难民救济和工程处追加捐款。
Yet news sources are quite keen to observe that the United States is pivoting its focus to East Asia as a means to counter China. And this action by the U.S. becomes a decisive opportunity for Beijing to turn its attention to the Middle East. On Thursday, she and Crown Prince Salman signed agreements worth $30 billion. Deals between China and Saudi Arabia included energy agreements on hydrogen, technology, mining, nuclear development, infrastructure, and defense in the Middle East. The official Saudi press agency says there is also a plan to harmonize Saudi Arabia's ambitious economic reform agenda, Vision 2030, with China's $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative. The signed deals also cover the teaching of the Chinese language, but Saudi press agency did not detail their substance or monetary value. Xi's visit to the Arab region has earned criticisms from the United States as the latter remains concerned that China is encroaching on its sphere of influence in the Middle East. As reported by Agence France Presse, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters this week that China is trying to deepen its level of influence in the Middle East in ways that are not conducive to preserving the international rules-based order. Though Kirby clarified that Washington is not asking nations to choose between the U.S. and China, he emphasized that President Joe Biden has said many times that in this strategic competition, the United States is certainly well poised to lead. However, Bernard Haeckel, a professor of Near Eastern Studies at Princeton University, who has had ties with the Saudi royal court, says Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia has marked a further advance in the tightening relationship between China and the kingdom. In Haeckel's piece on Al Arabiya news website, he notes that China is eroding Washington's role as a regional power broker. He also says that China, which has ties with Iran, has positioned itself as a partner to Gulf Arab states by supplying weapons like armed drones, and the United States has refused to do. For Saudi Arabia, Xi and China are seen as important partners in providing technology and know-how to build out the kingdom's defenses. Though Gulf Arab officials have long expressed concerns that Washington is increasingly disengaging its focus from the Middle East, political scientists say Beijing should not be complacent. John Calabrese, an assistant professor at American University, believes that Gulf leaders understand the current geopolitical situation. He observes that the Gulf region see themselves in a position to leverage their relationship with the U.S. and China. Yet, as of this moment, analysts say it cannot be denied that Xi's trip to Saudi Arabia has changed international political tides.
Up next, workers at New York Times go on strike. And wife of American diplomat sentenced in UK for killing British teen. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
Nako, may sipon pa yan.
May sipon pa yung lagay na yan! Bakit ka naiiyak?
Luha ito ng talagang hindi ako makapaniwala na naigapang, napagtagumpayan, at yung mga anak ko lumaking maayos.
Anong plano mo ngayon? Tuloy-tuloy na ang politics. Naku, magsesenadora ito. Hindi mo kailangang magsalita, umamin, dahil hindi ka naman naamin. Umiibig ka ngayon.
Oo, hindi ako napapagod sa kakaibig. Para sa akin, importante talaga na meron kang...
Totoo!
Na meron kang talagang kasamang tumanda.
Online 24/7. Click dito, like doon, selfie ng selfie, tutok ng tutok sa social media. Nandiyan pala kayo, mga kaagapay. Hook na hook kasi ako rito sa mga trending na young agripreneur. Sa mga social media sites o sa mga vlogging community man. hindi mahuhuli riyan ang usapang agriculture. Kaya ngayon, makikilala natin ang mga trending nating mga kaagapay na farmer pa. O di ba? Sangka pa. Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang ulat. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
This portion is brought.
A prisoner swap, American women's basketball star Brittany Griner has been released from prison in Russia and is finally home in the United States. This was confirmed yesterday by the Foreign Ministry of Russia. The prisoner swap took place at Abu Dhabi airport in replacement of jailed Russian businessman Viktor Bout. Griner, aged 32, was arrested shortly before Russia's special military operation in Ukraine in February at a Moscow airport for carrying vape cartridges containing cannabis oil. After being released from prison in the United States, businessman Viktor Bout has also returned to Russia. Bout was sentenced in 2012 to 25 years in prison in the U.S. for supplying weapons to rebels in some of the bloodiest conflicts in history. The Russian national spent 14 years in prison in the U.S.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump criticized the Biden administration for trading a high-profile prisoner for a basketball player while leaving a former Marine in a Russian prison. Trump said on his Truth Social platform that the prisoner swap deal is embarrassing for the United States. The former POTUS asked why Marine Paul Whelan was not included in the transaction. Whelan is a retired U.S. Marine who was convicted of espionage in 2020 and sentenced to 16 years in a Russian penal colony. According to RT News, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the Biden administration considers the Russian charges against Whelan totally illegitimate. Yet they were presented with a choice to bring back Griner or no one.
With millions of genocide victims around the world through the years, the United Nations chief calls on member states to do more to live up to the commitment to liberate humanity from the scourge of genocide. In New York, we have Joanne Soriano with a report.
December 9 is the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity for the victims of the crime of genocide and the prevention of this crime. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says it is a day to re-examine the world's collective failure to present this crime in the past and to redouble prevention efforts for the present and the future. Guterres says 70 years after the adoption of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, the threat of genocide remains present in many places around the world. He says discrimination and hate speech, which are early warning signs of genocide, are on the rise everywhere. The UN chief urges member states to do more to prevent resolute action against these dangerous trends. He says more must be done to live up to the commitment to liberate humanity from the scourge of genocide. According to the World Atlas, the worst genocides in history include killings of the Jewish people in the 1940s, the Ukrainians in the 1930s, the Cambodians in the 1970s, and the Rwandans in 1994. Joanne Soriano, New York, Matanang, Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Russia's war with Ukraine has revealed the European Union is not spending enough on defense. Josep Borrell, the EU's chief of diplomacy, says the war has shown Europe lacks the resources to protect itself.
This war against Ukraine has been a brutal wake-up for many of us, for all of us. It certainly has been a wake-up. We realize that our military stockpiles have been quickly depleted due to years of underinvestment to Ukraine.
Borrell says the bloc's 27 members need to increase military spending to make up for the shortfalls.
The French Army's heavyweight Leclerc tanks engage in live fire exercises near the Cincu camp in central Romania. Since mid-November, 13 Leclercs have been deployed to the country to strengthen the NATO battle group. According to Colonel Alexander de Faligonde, France intends to strengthen its resources quickly. Faligonde described the Leclerc tank as rather a symbolic element because it is the heaviest tank carrying very serious firepower. He said his battalion is composed of about 700 people capable of being placed on the Eastern European field, adding that for many years there has already been a defensive mechanism. For several years, the French have been participating in the Baltic countries within the framework of NATO security assurance, increased further by the events in Ukraine. Faligonde urged all participants to continue training to be credible and coherent.
News sources said Ankara wants a price cut of over 25% for Russian natural gas. Reports cited senior Turkish officials saying the issue will be discussed during bilateral talks this Friday. Specifically, the official said Turkey wants a discount to be applied to 2023 payments and to some previous payments made this year retrospectively. Ankara also seeks deferrals for payments, preferably until 2024, if Turkey fails to secure a reduction at the desired level. Russia and Turkey's economic and energy ties have been growing lately as Moscow seeks new markets for its exports due to Western sanctions.
U.S. oil benchmark West Texas Intermediate, or WTI, drops 3% Wednesday to finish at a new low for the year on worries about weakening demand. WTI futures for delivery in January ended the day at $72 a barrel after U.S. Energy Information Administration data showed a jump in gasoline stockpiles. This indicates ebbing consumption in the world's biggest economy. Edward Moya at Wanda Trading Group says gasoline inventories are rising as demand struggles. He adds this report shows the economy is clearly weakening. The WTI also closed at a 2022 low on Monday, while international benchmark Brent slipped to a level not seen since January. Analysts note that conditions in the oil market have loosened compared with earlier in the year, adding to oversupply worries at a time when economists are warning of a recession.
China says it is firmly opposed to the U.S. House of Representatives passing a defense spending bill that includes up to $10 billion in military grant assistance to Taiwan. According to Mao Ning, China's foreign ministry spokesperson, the Taiwan issue is purely China's internal affair, and the U.S. side should abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the Three China-U.S. joint communiques. Beijing commands the U.S. to delete the negative China-related content in the bill and to stop playing the Taiwan card in order to stop procuring damages to international relations. The spokesperson stressed that both China and Canada are beneficiaries of economic globalization and should jointly oppose the politicization of economic issues and the overextension of national security on such issues.
For the first time in 40 years, journalists and other workers at the New York Times have gone on strike. More than 1,000 workers hit the bricks Thursday to push for contract demands. Money is the main sticking point. The Times said in an article that the non-union newsroom employees would produce the paper for now. The union has been without a contract since March 2021. The Times is offering a 5.5% increase upon signing a deal with subsequent raises of 3% in 2023 and 2024, as well as a 4% retroactive bonus. The union wants 10% upon ratification and 5.5% in 2023 and 2024, as well as an 8.5% bonus. Health and retirement benefits are other outstanding issues. The Times is often referred to as America's paper of record.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's willing to grant asylum to former Peruvian President Pedro Castillo. Castillo was ousted by lawmakers and arrested on Wednesday after trying to dissolve the country's Congress in a move widely condemned as an attempted coup. He is now in police custody in the Peruvian capital, Lima. Lopez Obrador says Castillo had indicated he was going to seek asylum in Mexico but never made it to the Mexican embassy before being detained. Obrador says the former president faced baseless persecution from judicial authorities. Mexico's ambassador to Peru visited Castillo in prison on Thursday. Mexico is consulting with Peruvian authorities about the asylum claim. Mexican authorities have launched a search operation for a suspect responsible for 3 deaths of 3 women. Baja California Attorney General Ricardo Ivan Carpio Sanchez says the victims were found dead in hotel rooms last month. Carpio adds that the suspect's profile is similar to convicted psychopath criminal Ted Bundy.
The wife of an American diplomat in the UK narrowly avoided jail for killing a British teenager. Anna Sakulas was given an 8-month prison sentence, but he was suspended for 12 months, during which time she faces jail if she commits another offense. Sakulas did not attend the sentencing hearing in London, but followed it by video link. She pleaded guilty to killing 19-year-old Harry Dunn in 2019. Dunn died when his motorbike collided with Sakulas' car as she was driving on the wrong side of the road at the time. Her husband was a U.S. intelligence official. Sakulas left the UK soon after the accident. Attempts to extradite her back to Britain turned the case into a high-profile diplomatic spat between London and Washington. Coming right up, new U.S. currency will feature signatures of 2 women. Heidelin Diaz dominates weightlifting at IWF World Championships. And the most romantic Turkish series Daydreamer airs on Net 25. More international news when we return.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang angking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
first time ever, the U.S. dollar will bear the signatures of two women. Both Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and U.S. Treasurer Lynn Malerba will sign the new banknotes. Malerba's signature marks the first time U.S. currency will feature the signature of a Native American woman. The notes are set for delivery to the Federal Reserve this month and will be put into circulation in the new year. The new bills were unveiled today at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing's plant in Fort Worth, Texas. The first notes to go into circulation will be the $1 and $5 bills.
Philippines pride and Olympic gold medalist Heidelin Diaz bags the world champion title after leading the women's 55-kilogram event in the IWF World Weightlifting Championships in Bogota, Colombia. The 31-year-old swept all three golds at the weightlifting world championships after ruling the snatch or 93-kilogram, clean and jerk 114-kilogram, and total 207 kilograms in the women's 55-kilogram division. The strong Filipinas' total lift marked the best record among 10 competitors for gold medals in their weight class. On the record, Diaz topped the rank by beating Colombia's pride, Rosalba Morales, who bagged silver, and Mexico's pride, Ana G. Lopez, who bagged bronze. So far, Heidelin Diaz's haul is an Olympic gold and silver, an Asian Games gold, and multiple gold medals in the Southeast Asian Games.
Singer Jovit Baldovino passes away at the age of 29. The singer's family confirmed that Baldovino died today around 4 o'clock in the morning in a Batangas hospital. According to his parents, Larry and Cristeta Baldovino, Jovit had a mild stroke last November 22nd and was hospitalized for 5 days, after which he recovered at their family home. Last weekend, he was invited to sing for a holiday party in Batangas City, where he suffered another stroke. He was comatose for 5 days before his death early this morning. Baldovino is the first winner of the nationwide talent reality show Pilipinas Got Talent in 2010. He was also a constant guest in Net25 shows Himig ng Lahi and Letters and Music.
Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys was sued Thursday for allegedly raping an underage girl in 2001. The news was released after Thursday's press conference held by the victim, Shannon Shea Ruth, and her lawyers. In her Facebook live stream, Ruth, now 39, tearfully alleged that she was 17 when Carter sexually assaulted her. Ruth also mentioned in her live stream that she suffers from autism and cerebral palsy, but said that Carter's assault, as she put it, had a more lasting impact on her life. The victim further alleged that Carter, who was then 21, scared her to silence and threatened her. Ruth claimed that she is speaking now to stop Carter from assaulting more women and teens and to hold the 42-year-old pop star accountable. Aside from Ruth, 3 unnamed women reported Carter sexually assaulted them, but Carter's representatives did not respond for comment. Meanwhile, an entertainment website denied the claim by saying the accusation is categorically false, as Nick is focusing on his family and mourning the death of his brother. Rom-com lovers, watch out for Net25's latest treat this December. Turkey's best romantic comedy series Daydreamer is now here in the country. Daydreamer stars actress Demet Özdemir as Sanem Aydin, a fun girl full of dreams, and award-winning actor Can Yaman, who will play Can Divit. Daydreamer won the 45th Golden Butterfly Awards, which was also screened in Canada, Spain, USA, Italy, Japan, Russia, France, and Australia. Yaman was awarded Best Foreign Actor awards at Morix D and Golden Butterfly Award for his performance as Can, while Özdemir won the Best Romantic Comedy TV Series Actress at Pantene Golden Butterfly Awards. Daydreamer will start airing on Net25 on Monday, December the 12th at 7:30 in the evening after Mata ng Agila primetime.
New York Sotheby is set to put in auction a 67-million-year-old skull of Tyrannosaurus rex, dubbed Maximus Rex, which could be one of the most valuable fossils to go under the hammer. According to Cassandra Hatton, Vice President, Global Head of Science Pop Culture at Sotheby's, Maximus Rex is one of the most complete skulls ever discovered. Although there are 6 other skulls in the world with the same level of completeness as this T-Rex, only the 67-million-year-old fossil is available for purchase. Maximus Rex's estimated price ranges from $15 to $20 million, being offered with no reservation. Sotheby's representative said they are incredibly confident in the fossil's quality, authenticity, and condition, claiming that the market will be very interested in this valuable fossil. I missed saying this, Friday.
Yeah, you didn't get to say it last week, so you have to say it again.
Week, Friday. And to help you start your weekend, here is a quote from George Patton, an American military commander during the World War II. Success is how high you bounce when you hit bottom. So it's not about the incident, or what happened. It's about how you respond to it.
And it doesn't matter much how heavily you fell, even on your face, on the ground. It matters how much you are able to rise above your past or your current situation.
That is true. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Please do enjoy your weekend and catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores, wishing everyone yet again a happy weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.